Hello, everybody, and welcome to Keeping It Spiritually Simple. I'm Sandra, your host, and today it is my honor to have Brooklin Rayne on our show today. Now, Brooklyn and I attempted this a few weeks ago, but we're both electronically, I don't know, it's not that we're challenged, it's just that electronics can just get funky when it gets around me, and then together we just kind of blew up the computer. So here we are. Here we are on this beautiful Friday, 4th of July weekend, where a lot of people here in the States are celebrating independence and how that is more of cookouts and fun and fireworks. When really, if we go back to the roots and the seeds of all of it, it's a lot more than that. So Brooklyn is an intuitive healer. I'm fascinated by the Heart Oracle, because that's such a cool title. You don't hear that very often. She's a master quantum healer. She has a lot of courses, and you know what? Go to her website, which will be posted. You can get all that information there. In the meantime, let's use our time wisely and let's get into some topics here. Welcome, Brooklyn.
Thank you. So excited to be here and co-creating and not blowing out the computer today.
Yeah, good heavens. Got a new one over that one too, which is a good thing. So let's talk about, really where we are right now. And I think, pre-show, we were talking about so many people talk about ascension and ascension symptoms and, on and on and on, but they're really not paying attention to all the different bodies that are included in all of that. So could we maybe talk a little bit about what we were talking about pre-recording?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so, there's so many layers to this. And it's, as we know, there's such an epic amount of energy coming in, an influx of energy that is absolutely a catalyst for further growth and expansion and embodiment. And yet, if we're not finding our center point and sort of hunkering down into those spiritual foundation, right? The practices that we've all been hearing about and reading about for decades and decades, and honestly far beyond that, right? And through all these different lineages of yoganic lineage and Buddhist lineage and Hindu lineage and. But it's really coming back to that right now. It's coming back to the simplicity. I mean, there's so much complexity, and yet the way in which I feel like we're most being guided to navigate through it is in the simple practices of presence, of finding our own relationship with stillness, right? Our own relationship with that center point, that zero point, that still point within. Whether it's meditation or sound, sound baths, and there's so many, right? We could sit here for an hour and talk about all the different modalities in which we can utilize, but really coming back to creating consistency and showing up every day, right? So that consistency of self-love, self-nourishment, self-awareness, and centering every single day. And so, as we were talking beforehand and we're bringing up right now, okay, what does that mean? And how do we do that? Well, as we know, we're so much beyond the physical, mental, emotional, and spirit bodies, right? There's so many layers to that. And again, we could go into that, and it's quite complex. But to simplify it, we're meant to really kind of nourish and honor all layers of those bodies, right? The physical body and then the more subtle bodies right now. And really kind of attune and allow ourselves to find practices and ways of bringing ourselves into a unified flow within those bodies. So that as all of these energies are coming in, and the plasma frequencies and the epic, astrological alignments, talk about freedom codes, we can circle back to that if you want, but, all these things, coming up and coming through, how do we manage that? So the physical body being on the forefront of it, right? The physical body and ascension symptoms, right? Mm-hmm. Being on the forefront of it, and experiencing all these layers of discomfort and things taking place and shifting. And so finding simple ways to nourish that. And I think something that we were touching on beforehand as well is ascension versus ascension, right? So what does that mean? Well, we've all, maybe not all of us, but I think a fair amount of us have spent previous timelines whereby we've ascended, right? It may not have been even in these big collective sort of timelines and pockets of ascension, which of course we know we're going through right now and leading into. But on our journeys of previous timelines, many of us have ascended, whereby we bring ourselves to such great levels of self-realization and embodiment of I am presence, and we drop the physical body and we move our consciousness into the higher planes and dimensional frameworks of consciousness. However, in this ascension cycle, it's about coming in to physicality, and honoring and taking, the cellular DNA and the cellular water along with us, right? So not dropping the physical body and leaving it behind, but taking the physical body, and sending it back into its original angelic template, back into, the highest functioning levels of the sacred technology that it is. So whereas many who have been on the spiritual path for decades have mastered their ability to kind of stay in the higher realms, sort of deal with the physical body on the periphery of things, but really kind of desiring to escape the invitation of being here because of the discomfort and the contrast and the polarity of being an original human angelic being and being in this third density and this physicality. It's a non-negotiable. It's a total non-negotiable at this time. It's like there's no bypassing being, honoring, embracing, and embodying within physicality. So there are a lot of things that have recently come into alignment that are pulling us, back into alignment with the blueprint of this ascension cycle. And it's very uncomfortable if we're in any level of resistance to it. So these foundational practices and this non-negotiable, space and time of, showing up for ourselves each day and focusing on harmonizing and balancing and bringing all of our bodies into this unified flow of our intention of this time is really helpful, right? And
Yes.
that could be as simple as just having a meditation and saying, okay, I surrender. I surrender into, the blueprint of this ascension. I call forth, all that needs to take place here and now, within my, physical body. So many ways in which we can navigate through that, but that's really coming to the forefront. And and personally too, because we're all so busy and we all have so many little pots on the stove and roles that we're playing here, right? I know we're moms, we're this, we're that, we're all of it. And so navigating through all the layers of it and navigating through everybody else's blueprint and its uniqueness, right? It's like, whoa. So having that space of, okay, let me get centered, let me get balanced, let me get harmonized, let me bring all my bodies into the same singular one intention, can be really, really helpful.
Wow. Everything you're saying is so amazingly important and true. And it's so pertinent right now because so many people have a lot of things coming up because the energies are just flipping and flopping and changing. And what you're saying about navigating, I look at it as energetic bumper cars. So if you're not really aligned, everyone's played bumper cars. You get in there and next thing you know, you're getting banged all over the place, but it's not until you take control and understand which way your vehicle is going that you're able to navigate through all of it. But like you said, when we've got all these burners and then we're not feeling up to par or things are going on, there's so much happening that distracts us from that. So that daily consistency of whether it's prayer, meditation, nature walk, listening to music, stepping away, cooking, paying attention to how you're chopping the vegetables, who's going to enjoy those. And when you said the word navigate, I had an experience Monday actually. Went to a store, went in, got what I needed, came out happy as a clam, just however happy a clam can be. And the door opened and I felt like a lightning flip. And I literally had no idea where I was in the universe. No idea. I did not take a grocery bag, so I had a number of things in my hand. And I felt like I could have had that adrenal button flush, of, oh crap, where am I? Immediately something said, navigate, navigate. So I'm looking out at what does not look familiar. I have no idea where my car is. And then I just slowly begin to walk and scan. Next thing I know, there's my car. And then I get to my car and I look back at how I walked in, and then things became more familiar. So I think our life lessons right now are being taught that we have to navigate and we have to pay attention. We have to be in present moment. And we have to understand we don't get anywhere without these physical bodies. Nowhere without these physical bodies. And I think what you're saying is in the past, we've left them and we're just like, oh, well, we're exiting out of here. What the heck? But we're not now. So we've got to pay attention to every cellular movement. And it's a full-time job, folks. I'm telling you, I think I'm pretty good at it. And every time I think I'm pretty good at it, something comes along and I'm like, crap, why can't I just ignore all this? Ignorance is bliss, but I'm not ignorant, so I can't.
Yeah, well, I used to love that saying, ignorance is bliss. But then when you start to awaken, you realize awareness is bliss.
Yes, it is. And awareness needs action. It needs to have action in some form, even if it's sitting still and marinating in that.
Yeah.
So what would you suggest? I know you have a lot of courses and everything, but what would you suggest for our viewers who are working on navigating just through their day of responsibilities?
Yeah, you know what? It just keeps coming in over and over and over, like for the last many weeks. And then again, right now, I hear, the source coming in to say, to simplify it even more, because even in, the bringing forth the whole idea of, finding that centered space, creating that non-negotiable practice, right? Of, still that's left for so much interpretation, and it can be overwhelming because of the amount of options and data and all the stuff that's out there. To kind of bring it in even further, to finally attune our relationship with our internal compass, that eternal atom seed, our wisdom center that has always existed within us and as us. We can simplify it even further to, in every now moment as we're navigating through this, or as many now moments as we choose, obviously, what is my intention? What is my intention in this now moment? And so taking a moment, taking a breath, resetting, sometimes we have so many programs built in, like we feel like, oh, I can't take a breath. Like it's, people are going to think I'm strange. Right? It's like, we're in the thick of it right now. So, the paying any homage to anything outside of ourselves and any, what anyone thinks and it's like, okay, let's just drop that, like 101, right? Drop that. So finding that in that now moment, taking a breath of source, breath of God, right? There's a reason why it's termed that, it's become a bit cliche in certain ways, but yet all those things that are termed cliche tend to be the most, brilliant and omnipotent universal truth. So taking a deep breath, connecting, even sometimes if we're in that state of placing our hands upon our heart center, taking that breath and just checking in. Okay, what is my intention in this now moment? And when we do that, the thinking mind, drops away, because it's like, wait a second. Oh, they're onto it. They're onto us, right? They're onto us. Like when we get clear with that, we can just instantaneously drop a lot of static, a lot of, of the minutia that's constantly being interfaced in our experience here. And then take it a next step further. And maybe we don't know, because maybe we've been so not in the present moment and diving into all the different frequencies and wormholes that exist within our own hologram and in the collective hologram, that we've gotten off center in that. So redirecting, what do I desire my intention to be? So if I don't know what my intention is, let me figure that out. Because, as source embodied in a human suit, we are, powerful, sovereign, free creator beings. So when we focus our consciousness into our heart space, into that internal compass and navigational center, right? And we take a moment and we take a breath and we redirect our consciousness into a clear intention, it's like we watch our reality shift. And I feel like your expression and sharing of your story at the store is a perfect example of that, right? I was seeing all sorts of things as you were talking about taking place within the quantum field and where you were in your geographic location and how things, and we can get into the interesting depths of that if we wanted to. But ultimately, that can be a distraction as well. So it's like how all of these interesting phenomena and things are taking place, but how do we navigate through it, in our roles and our blueprint here with more grace? And so dropping into the now moment, taking a breath. What is my intention? Okay, maybe we have the intention, we find it immediately. Or then we don't, we create it. But then who has created this intention? And that's a big key, because is it a thread of my inner child or a wounded adult that is operating, playing through stories of the past and identification with the pain bodies and the traumas? Or is it my higher self, the witnessing presence, my full identification with myself as source, creating the intention? And that brings us into a whole nother category of presence, right? Because it's like, oh, okay. And if we can steer ourselves, into a gentle space free of judgment, free of judging ourselves for maybe creating the intention through, a wounded aspect of self, and we can just embrace and be like, oh, okay, and self-compassion and self-love. Oh yeah, let me just reset here. I'm totally navigating through my reality through the lens of, of an aspect of my pain body. Let me come back in, reset. I am source. I am sovereign. I am free. I'm in this now moment, and here is my clear intention. And then we can start to reset the framework of our thoughts and our words and our actions to be, in that consistent flow of the intention, And so the more times throughout the day we can bring ourselves back to that center point, bring ourselves back, and someone might say, well, what do you mean by intention? Which, not a silly question, because there's so many interpretations of it. I most identify with that as, what do I desire my reality to be right now? As a creator being with, the sovereignty and the freedom and the ability to create my reality, what is it that I desire my reality to be? Free of any limitations, free of what I've been programmed to believe that's possible, letting all that go. Okay. And it could be something simple, because maybe we're moving through such a pocket of turbulence that my intention is, I am divine peace. I just want to find and become the eye of the hurricane, that center point of complete peace. So, keep it simple in the intention too, because what would happen in our lifetime or in our life if we were navigating through all of it, constantly attuning to the present moment and constantly directing ourselves to be peace? Everything around us in our external reality would reflect back in the flow and the lens of peace. So we get caught up in like the grandeur of it. Oh, I don't even know. We get afraid of even creating an intention because it's like, I don't know. I don't, keep it simple.
Yeah.
Keep it simple and keep it, I am unconditional, immaculate love. Well,
Mhm.
if we become this, if this is our lens, that everything in our external reality will reflect that back and magnetize that back. Of course, it takes that showing up and that consistency, and it's like the thinking mind will try to tell us, well, I just told myself I'm unconditional love and peace, but this person just came over here and yelled in my face. Well, it takes time because we are our own unique hologram and field of coordinates. And everything that we have in our field of coordinates is a beacon and a transmitter of frequencies, right? And so if we're holding on to all these patterns of fear and sort of the polarity of peace and, within our field, then it takes time for the unwinding of that. So it
Yes.
takes that faith and that trust that when I show up and I redirect and I become present and I identify a source, and I set a clear intention, all within my reality is in the flow and manifestation of creating that, of manifesting that intention. But it takes time.
Yes.
And it takes trust and it takes consistency. So, but it's so powerful and it's so simple. If we were just to take that practice and make that, something that we constantly reattune to and dive into, that alone opens up like epic, pathways of ascension for us.
Yes. Those instant resets are critically important. And I find that sometimes I can do them 100 times a day, depending on what's going on, or I could do them 2 times a day. And then I love to see spirit then play like, oh, she just said she's embracing the day and it's going to be graceful. Well, let's see how she handles this. And it's like, I just laugh now because I know they're like, let's just drive that in a little harder. Let's just make sure you're really doing that because this is your daily reality. So you have to embrace that, breathe with that. And consistency is important. It's like with anything. You start something for the first time and it seems like it's labor intensive. And
Yeah.
then the next few times you do it becomes a little easier, a little easier. And when you're talking about the energetics and pulling it together and setting your intention and expecting, well, then that person just yelled at me after I just said that. Well, that was just another lesson coming back. But in the meantime, once you start resetting, you begin to emanate out further and further and further. And these experiences happen less. And then when they do, your response is like, that didn't faze me, didn't knock me off my center today. And
Yeah.
this is how I live my life all day long, is through dialogue, like just like this. But doesn't mean it's easy. It is
Mm-mm.
not easy, but the more I do it, and you were talking about, people having life going on, and let's say you're leaving work and you're driving home, and the first thing is, I'm going to go home, make peaceful dinner. I'm going to go home, make a peaceful dinner. Well, you're already out of the present moment thinking about going home. So send some energy to the home, have the peace meet you there, right? While you stay in the peace of the 10 and 2 getting there. And so
Mm.
there's this whole energetic wave of connections and threads that I visualize occurring I'm a very visual person. So I see
Same.
the dowsing, I douse everywhere. And it's like, oh, let's see how that looks, kind of
Yeah.
thing. So having a daily practice of some sort, and maybe we can kind of do one of those little exercises at the end would be kind of nice for people. Now, the other
Absolutely.
thing we had talked about before was this whole business about the Christ consciousness and everyone wanting to connect that to Yeshua, Jesus, whoever, whatever name you want to call it. And then some will say the Christos and so on. Could you explain a little bit about the Christed consciousness or the Christo consciousness, and what really is that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, having, grown up Catholic in this lifetime, I feel like I've gotten a pretty good degree of awareness of all layers of what has been brought forth into this matrices, as a description of Christ consciousness, right? But when I began to awaken about 11 years ago, and interestingly, and I know I shared this a little bit with you at some point, but so I was going to church every single weekend, going to CCD. My parents were very devout, and so yet I could not retain a single bit of it. It was like the teacher on Charlie Brown,
Wah, 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 wah.
yeah. And I thought, wow, do I have a learning disability? Like it's possible. So, I mean, interestingly, the imprints of the sort of the general overlay of that institution, if you will, or corporation, you're a sinner, you're born a sinner, you got to shovel yourself out of here through, systems of self-sacrifice and enslavement. So that was imprinted, deeply woven and imprinted just through the consistency of and the repetitiveness of kind of sounding that out, right? But all the stories and the things of this nature, for whatever reason, it never really landed for me. So anyways, I always had this feeling of like, gosh, like it just doesn't feel like my truth, There was not a judgment around it. There wasn't any sort of feeling like, this is not your truth either, because, we're all here to experience and to identify what feels and resonates as our deepest truth. So I showed up, I did my duty, as a rule follower and a daughter, and I showed up and I went to church. But when I started to awaken, about 11 years ago, and I had this whole experience and surrendered, and I heard, God come in to say, it's time to meditate. And I began to meditate, and I had this really profound experience where Christ consciousness came in as this, and source, God, came in as these massive fields of pure light, right? Just pure golden light, pure white light just came in and sort of, jolted me on a cellular level to be like, okay, this is actually what as your truth, as Christ consciousness, as Christos consciousness, as God consciousness. And, it's hard to put into words, but so many of the pieces of the puzzle, were brought forth in that experience. It was like a washing away of so many layers and imprints of what, has been brought forth in way of perhaps, distorting that frequency of pure, unified consciousness, law of one, right? And so then I started to, through the journey, I started to really start to receive and connect with the Christ Collective, which of course, there are many, many bodies of consciousness, of these, sort of collective grouping of light, if you will, that show up in direction or in way of Christ consciousness. And so, it's almost very challenging to put into words sometimes what is, undescribable. But really what I've been shown, over these years as I dive deeper and deeper into desiring to know it and to embody it even more, is that, this Christ consciousness is a multiversal, consciousness. It extends and expands way beyond the earth experience, beyond our universal experience. And there are infinite systems, universal systems, and infinite systems of creation. But when I get taken to, the massive and sort of the source of all existence, the source of all creation, for me in that experience is this massive field of pure white light. And as I look at it, and as I, desire to sort of greater understand where Christ consciousness lies within that field of just original creation code. It's this, it sort of drops down into this golden band, that's, sort of a medium, if you will, or a mediator, or an actionable flow of the highest and purest creation codes of prime source. So it takes, the original individuations of source, light and sound in its purest format, and brings it down into the threads, into the quantum fabric of all systems created, through the unified field of consciousness, through the law of one. I am you, you are me, we are source, we are one. Mm-hmm. So, then we bring it down into all different systems of creation, and it's uniquely expressed within all of those systems of creation. And so far beyond the story of Yeshua, which we most equate or relate to Christ consciousness, far before that, within the construct of the original angelic template, the original human template, is the diamond Christos, light grid or, template, which allows, for the human in the original angelic template and the human template to hold that frequency field of the highest connection field of law of one, of connection with source, and connection with this, with this Christos consciousness. And as we know, it's been manipulated and fractured and skewed. And so when my understanding, and of course take what resonates always and throw the rest out, but what I've been shown is, then when we come into those timelines of Yeshua, of Jesus, what took place is, he came through to embody as, the avatar or the chess piece of the, physical embodiment, to come in to say, to remind humanity at this time of great darkness and, decline of consciousness. I am you, you are me, we are one. Let me bring forth the embodiment, let me bring forth the frequencies, let me bring forth the technology to remind each and every one of you here that you have the same exact blueprint and ability to resurrect, and to return back into this relationship as, law of one, of unified consciousness, as, the I am presence or self-realization. And because those who didn't and still don't have humanity's highest and best interest at hand, right, we're like, what? And realize the potential and the ripple effect of this experience, of this embodiment, of this expression of pure Christos, pure Christ, light returned. There was an immediate plan and multiple plans to create a big wave of distortion around it, so that the singular message, and embodiment of that Christ consciousness would not be fully realized and shared, right? So all of these stories then began, which all hold layers and levels of truth, so that we can, we can feel a sense of resonance with it, yet ultimately, led us off the truest path of, basically Yeshua coming in, and many other beings too, as we know, Buddha and Krishna, and these are just the ones we know of, or limited access to the, historical accounts of humanity. But it's like, okay, so he came in as, an avatar, as an expression, to be a mirror, to say, this is possible for all of us. So not to run specialness and, and play into the false, lineages of hierarchy and these false archetypes that have dropped in, but to do the exact opposite, to really hold that field. And these seeds during those timelines and previous timelines and timelines since, there have been these massive portals and seeds of Christos consciousness, of this, original framework of source codes, through the intention of law of one, right, that have been planted within the grids of Gaia, within the different geographic locations of Gaia. And so when we've heard through the Bible and we hear through so many different vehicles and prophets and etc., a second coming of Christ consciousness, what became very clear early on, and I had this really interesting experience with it, is, it's not meant to be experienced by one and through one. It's meant to be experienced through all. So the resurrection of Christ consciousness during this time is the activation of all these seeds that have been planted, within the grids of Gaia, within the systems of Gaia, and that are planted within the seeds of those of us who come in holding these lineages, and these specific coordinates within our blueprint to all come back into embodiment, right, during this time. So hopefully I didn't deviate too much, but that's my clearest understanding of Christ consciousness in relationship to us right now.
Well, it's a big subject. I look at it as the Christ consciousness was dimmed down by placing it into one man, is what, and making that his name. So that's what's associated with that. So right now we're turning the dimmer switches up and seeing this glow around all of us, in us, and in all things. And when I used to go to church, I would see the statues and they would say, "We don't look like this." And I would see the glow around them. Now my feet weren't even touching the ground. So I was always into, none of this makes any sense kind of thing. So I get it. Religion has a tendency to box in it's like taking a forest and trying to put it into somebody's backyard and saying that's a forest, and yet nobody really knows what a real mountainous forest looks like. So that's what I feel like we're doing a lot with some of these energies. And right now we're like, no, let's expand all that out. It's so much more. And what you were saying is, I am you, you are me. I had an experience in 2017 where I met my higher self. And it was in a very vivid dream state. And it was like a separate light being. And I kept saying, "So what's your name?" And I kept saying, "I am you, you are me." And I said, "Okay, but what's your name?" "I am you, you are me." And I was like, okay. This went back and forth a little bit. And then we were practicing healing, and I was trying to do a healing on my own with this higher self light being behind me, right? And then the difference of it coming in and enveloping me and doing the healing work that way. And when I did that, I was literally inside of this, and I could look at different people, not down at them, but they could get into my light body and look up at me or around at me. And it was just so incredible. So again, I get things very visual. So then it has a very big message. The vision might be this big, but then the message is like this big, and it's difficult to explain to a lot of people. So I just keep it to myself. So we all embody this beautiful energy. And that's the power that I think people want to say, "Oh, that's been hidden from you." Well, we don't know the history of anything, really. We just know what someone's perception and how they wrote it. And then if you were a king in a land with no internet, how could you control your farm? You would just not let them read any of that, kind of thing. And now we're seeing through people who are anthropologists and healers like yourself and so on that are bringing this energy and this information back out directly from source. And it feels like it's a new way, but really it resonates in a way that's very ancient within us. It's the only way I can express it right now.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Totally. And it's beautifully expressed. Yeah, I would say there, because what I'm realizing every single day is that we really know nothing, and what that means, or what I feel like that means, is there's so many timelines that are in existence and that are woven within the quantum fabric of all existence. But let's just say even of this earth existence and its many different forms of existence and its many different forms of existence within different dimensional ranges of consciousness, etc. That there are infinite timelines that have taken place even, within what is considered history of it. And really what matters most in all of it, because we can get caught up in it, we can go in, we can explore, and sure, that's fun. That's part of our, infinite creator selves and desire to, to express and to explore our consciousness through so many different lenses and experiences. Yet really, to embody and to embrace and to have a greater understanding of what Christ consciousness, Christos consciousness means in relationship to ourselves and ourselves is to simply call it forth, command it in, breathe it in, and connect with it, and allow ourselves to unfold our own unique expression of truth and experience with it, right? So beyond the stories, beyond the minutia, beyond the, the warring frequencies and the boxing in, and, it's like, okay, just, why not just explore it and experience it through your own unique lens, and navigational system, and determine for yourself, what it feels like, what it is, what it means, what you're meant to do with it, right? Because, I can come in here and express it in such a limited way of words, which we know are great and they're helpful to some degree, but they're also, they were created through this matrices of finite control and separation. So words in and of themselves are, are boxy, but, breathe it, experience it, command it in its purest and highest form, in accordance to the highest divine law and order for yourself. And see what takes place when you do, right? Mm-hmm. And that would be my encouragement and invitation for anyone who still feels like, they're kind of working through and like, wow, this is so confusing. Like, I feel the resonance of truth and what's being spoken here, and yet, I feel like a sense of deep connection and, and foundational strength and staying connected to the organized religion that I've, chosen to experience. And there's no good or bad, right or wrong.
Yeah.
It's just,
experience.
It's an experience, right? So, just to be clear, I'm not poo-pooing on anyone's experience here and anyone's, I simply share my own experience with organized religion and Christ consciousness and what has, my guiding light of pure connection to and as source has brought me into greater relationship with it as. So, yeah, I think that's part of the beauty of this experience here. And I think one of the key elements or key, whatever you want to call it, keys to freedom and to really embodying and being your own unique individuation of unified consciousness is to see, to feel, to know the beauty in each individual that exists here, to see and to from a place of greater neutrality and just witnessing, presence. Okay, we're all unique, sovereign, free individuations of source. We all have our own unique blueprints here, and just admiring and with curiosity, everybody's unique journey here, right? Yeah.
No, I so agree. And there are things to learn inside the box. There are many things to learn inside the box. But if you stay inside the box, you don't get to experience and explore the pathways outside of the box. But you won't appreciate outside of the box if you haven't been in the box. That's
Totally.
how I look at it.
Yeah.
And so everything that we've experienced all the way up to now, whether you think it's preordained or pre-planned or somewhere, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Where are you now and what's your intention to move forward with all these experiences without them feeling like albatrosses, like you're dragging this victim cross, all these things. You don't need any of it, right? It's an experience. It's a lesson, right?
Yeah.
So, when I was a kid, and I would be in church and my friends would be in a different church and I couldn't understand really the difference. It was just a different name of their church and their religion. And as a kid, sometimes I would leave my body and fly over to the other church. And all of those people would have the same blank stares on their face, the same expressions of different things, taking care of their family, listening to who was speaking. And the same thing was going on in this domain. So the other thing is, I always learned you don't get to heaven without being baptized. And I used to say, well, I've been baptized 3 times. So you you better get the back of the line because I'm at the front of the line. If that's what's getting me into heaven. Religion has its place, but it's changing. People are getting out of that control, that inside the box. Don't fault it. It's just what has gone on right now. So how do we expand from there, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I marvel, embrace with, such gratitude, the divine perfection of every single moment experienced here. And I think that's a key to really, in sending as well, is like when we come out of resistance, right? But sometimes when we're awakening, like when I first began this journey, right? And I had this moment, that dropped in, I call it my surrender point. I was working through a lot of programs of frustration and, and anger as to, feeling like duped, right? Like, wow, this, because I started to feel and to embody what felt as, truth to me. And then I realized, that a lot of what I had been experiencing through organized religion was in polarity to my own inner truth. But I was still, to your point of dropping in the victim-victimizer programming, I was still, and operating in many, many, many degrees of subconscious and conscious layers of the victim-victimizer programming, and not identifying with myself as, the witnessing presence and a unique expression of source embodied. I was still identifying with the roles and the characters that I had been playing and the roles and the characters that they are playing. So when you can kind of rise into a place of consciousness that can only come from surrendering into and taking full ownership and responsibility for how I've chosen to appropriate my consciousness and play into that, right? When we rise into that place of sort of, start to come into these layers of higher and higher perspective or eagle eye perspective, right? Then we realize, we almost get a smile. It's almost funny, right? It's like, oh my gosh, they're there, human self, right? And then we can see the perfection in it. We can see the beauty and the perfection in having played all those different roles and experienced that broad bandwidth of polarity, and what perhaps is the polarity of the truest core essence of ourselves. Mm-hmm. But to your point, to really get to this place of greater expansion of consciousness and evolution of consciousness and we have to dive into experiencing what the polarity of our core essence is. Otherwise, we would only know our core essence, which leads us back to, to what I believe is, the reason for the original individuations of source sparking off into all these different, individuations of source, navigating through, creating and experiencing, ourselves in unique ways. It was for source to be able to further express and expand, its awareness and consciousness, right?
Yes.
So we're the micro of the macro, and here we are. But when we come in with the blindfold on and we forget that we are source, yeah, and we forget that we're connected, that's perfect too. Because again, we wouldn't have experienced any of this polarity if we dropped in here remembering that we were source and that we're not separate of anything. It would be very hard to engage in this matrices of one giant, play after play after play after play after play, right? Mm-hmm. Because we would have that awareness and we would be like, oh, this is not as fun having the awareness, because the awareness is front and center, and it's like when you're playing with Barbies as a kid, or you're playing with G.I. Joe. I'm dating myself right now. You're playing with these things. It's like it's if you're playing with it as like, okay, I'm the witnessing presence, creating this there's only so much that you can really extrapolate and gain in the awareness and the expansion of it, because there's still the identification with yourself as the witnessing presence, as source, having, some fun here. But when you fully wipe out your remembrance as the witnessing presence, and now you're just engaged in, embracing these roles and these characters with full identification, then you really get into the true nitty gritty and like the true essence of expression of that polarity. So if we can get ourselves to this place of gratitude and sort of childlike, joy and curiosity and a greater awareness of how this whole game works, then we can receive all the nuggets of expansion and growth from it.
Yeah, and if we didn't get an opportunity to play on the scales of polarity, we wouldn't understand and appreciate the freedom of choice. Because we have to experience both in order to figure out where do we want to be on the scale, what feels good. And there's a lot of people out here that are saying, oh, 5D is not going to have polarity. How do you know that? I mean, seriously, you got it here in 3D. We're in 4D. Some can get to 5D, whatever that is to anybody. It doesn't matter. You've got polarity in your dream states. So, I mean, you've got it in body and out of body. So work with what you have now, work with the polarity of it so that you can really feel kinesthetically where it is that you want your place to be, what you desire, and be able to tweak with that. It's being able to weave and bob and weave with all of that stuff.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like what I'm hearing too about, what I've heard and been hearing about 5D is, we can look at Earth right now and the human experience and the human collective as, it's most often referred to as the third density right now. And that's because the majority of beings that are the collective of humanity, are resonating, within the frequency band of that level or that, of consciousness. Yet, as we know, so many of us have already, we exist to some degree, still in that because we're part of the collective. Yet, we attune our present moment consciousness to 4D, 5D, all the way up, beyond dimensionalization for many, right? So again, what does it mean for 5D? And my greatest awareness of that in this now moment is, it's when we reach, we being everything that exists within and upon Gaia, humanity being one layer of the consciousness. Of course, we know there are lots of beings unseen, and there are lots of other beings, the animal kingdom, and, right? So when the critical mass of consciousness within and upon Gaia brings itself, resurrects itself into a specific sort of frequency field of the fifth dimensional plane of consciousness. There are always going to be outliers within that, and there's even different heights and abilities to ascend within the fifth dimension, right? And within like holding it and embracing it and expanding the fifth dimensional range of consciousness. So it basically becomes the new foundation. It becomes the new baseline of consciousness. Yet what that does is it positions us, yes, there's still polarity that exists, but what it does is it allows for us, and this is where we come back to ascension, it allows for our physical, mental, emotional, and spirit bodies to attune to, a higher embodiment and degree of crystalline and plasma technology versus the carbon-based, slower moving, denser sort of, if you will, technology. And so then in that, we can embrace and embody and attune to higher depths of our original angelic templates, our original crystalline templates, which is a multiversal vehicle, and each one of them uniquely expressed because we're all unique, right? And so there is not this ceiling that I feel like a lot just, and why wouldn't we? Because we're so indoctrinated in this linear perception of reality. But it becomes a base, and it becomes to where there's still a polarity that exists within, because that's the part of the universal framework and this dimensional, or let's just say the matrices of creation around, around the different variations of Gaia. Yet through each person's own unique blueprint and ascension blueprint, we have a very wide range of where we can exist and where we can travel to and where we can hold, bandwidths of consciousness far beyond the fifth density. But polarity exists. It's how we respond to the polarity that significantly changes once we accomplish that resonance field and that baseline of fifth density. So polarity is part of the quantum fabric of this earth matrices in creation, and of this universal matrices in many of its levels of dimensional range. However, how we respond to it and how we instantaneously integrate it is totally different than what we're experiencing as we're choosing to be in the third density, if that makes sense. So
Makes total
that felt
sense.
like I wanted to be dropped in a little bit.
No, I appreciate that. Our viewers will appreciate that. There's a lot of information. I think people are going to have to re-listen to this more than once because there's a lot. There's a lot going on right now and a lot coming through right now. And I appreciate all of what it is that you're saying through all your guides. I really do. Now, I was wondering, maybe we could do like a little blessing or a meditation or just something maybe to guide someone through. How do I reset myself? Well, how do I really want it's to me, I go by how I feel. So it can be many different things. And then I take how I feel. And then when I'm out of that feeling, how do I get back in it? And then how do I recognize it? Right. Yeah. So maybe, going through this, I'm just saying to the viewers right now, which is what's coming through me, is we may go through this little blessing, guided meditation, whatever it is. Tap into how you feel at the end or where you are in it. And that is what you want to tap back into. Don't try to keep up with the words. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like that is a beautiful, beautiful wisdom. And if the words are meant to be, greater explored and known and expressed, they will. But ultimately, yes. It's the felt sense, which is perfect because as you were talking and as I was connecting to Source, the One Source Collective, they're showing, I know exactly where we're going we're going home, right? We're going into the heart center. We're going into that, our own, internal navigational system, our compass, our inner compass, that beautiful heart field of, unique to each one of us. So, okay. All right. Well, let's do it then. I'm excited.
All righty.
Okay. All right. So taking a moment and really allowing ourselves to become present, letting go of any to-do lists, letting go of any mind chatter, letting go of any resistance to fully embracing this now moment with grace and ease. Taking some deep breaths, perhaps, some deep inhales in through the nose, filling the lower belly, filling the rib cage, filling the chest, pausing for just a second, and then exhaling through the mouth, letting it all out. Feeling, commanding, attuning in this breath and in our desire to fully be present, to drop into our heart space, to drop into the here and now, feeling through the breath and through our intention of surrendering into this now moment, the physical, mental, emotional, and spirit bodies coming into a great sense of relaxation, coming into the unified flow, the one flow, the harmonious flow of presence. We're giving ourselves and our cells permission right now, in this now moment, to come in to that space that we most identify with as home, within the heart. And perhaps for some, placing a hand upon our heart, our high heart, right between our chest plate, assists us even more so, helps us bring ourselves back into our physical bodies, back into this present moment, back into the full invitation accepted of it is safe to be me, It is safe to be here. I embrace this beautiful and expansive journey of and as a human incarnate. So breathing, connecting, setting the general intention for here and now, calling in the greatest miracles capable of manifesting here and now for each and every one gathered, with grace and ease in accordance to the highest prime source creator, law and order. Opening and allowing, settling into that heart space, and giving ourselves permission to enter into this time together, this moment together, this experience together, with childlike curiosity and joy. We are the choosers of our choices. And each now moment, we have the blessing and the birthright to direct our consciousness into whatever lens of perception that we choose. So feeling what it would be like in this now moment to receive what is coming through the lens of curiosity, childlike curiosity, and through the lens of joy, allowing our hearts to expand. When we bring that frequency of joy in and through, we feel an immediate sense of relaxation, letting go of the seriousness of life, opening ourselves up into a very familiar space and place within our heart center of that immaculate childlike joy, innocence, that pureness that each and every one of us exist as, beyond the veils of illusion, that connection with our eternal self that has always existed within. And perhaps you're taking a moment right now to witness the beauty of your own unique heart light, that internal, eternal compass within, allowing ourselves the space to rejoice in joy, in love, in presence, with our own unique rhythm, with our own unique light. As we feel ourselves going deeper into surrender, surrendering into this moment here together, we allow ourselves the invitation to meet ourselves in each and every now moment in the feeling of what is coming through uniquely for each of us right now, through this pure source light, through this pure Christos consciousness, as we feel now a golden wellspring, a pure flow of this golden Christos light flowing down and through our crown, flowing down and through all of our meridians, chakras, gateways, and portals, and further resurrecting within us, resurrecting a deeper awareness of who I am and why I'm here. Resurrecting and opening us up into a greater cellular awareness of the pure and immaculate source essence that each and every one of us are, uniquely expressed. Abraya sambaya sundi ambieshani and andraya tran, al supriesani amandru crusini andreni, iatra sapursanani amandruisani apatresan, Undariya prapuainiananan, hao, hao, hayanda praya, ya, 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 hao, hao, undariya, ya, hao, hao, Prayasana Prayananan opening, feeling our light now expanding out in full radiance, speaking our own unique signature of unconditional love, compassion, joy, creation, feeling the layers upon layers of light emanating from the center of our heart space out through our bodies, beyond our bodies, allowing ourselves to expand, coming out of fight or flight, coming out of contraction, coming into the flow of our divine birthright, of expanding, expressing, embodying ourselves as a radiant vehicle of infinite and epic, unconditional love and compassion for ourselves, for all others, feeling it, allowing it, letting go of the stories that it is unsafe to express unconditional love, to allow myself to be in the full radiance and presence of my eternal self, letting go of the fear, letting go of the fear of being seen, being felt in the truest and most authentic expression of yourself as source. Letting go and allowing your wings, your angelic wings that are the extension of your immaculate and profound heart space, to open up, to radiate, and to now receive as well. It is safe to receive immaculate, unconditional love, an infinite flow. It is safe. It is safe to receive immaculate and unconditional love, an infinite flow, opening, feeling that heart center open, and witnessing, as the witnessing presence in this moment, in this connection field, witnessing how all things within you and around you begin to feel, to sense, to open up, to receive, and to illuminate when we allow ourselves to express through our most authentic expression of self, the love and the light that we are. Opening, allowing, witnessing. When we show up and allow ourselves to be present within our heart centers, setting a clear intention, connecting in and as source, allowing our heart light to open up, to shine, to illuminate, to activate, all things within us and around us, within our reality, begin to do the same. We begin to create the reality that we desire. We begin to see, to feel, to witness, and to know on a grander way of embodiment how everything within our external reality is a reflection of our relationship within ourselves. Opening and allowing as we feel this golden Christ light, this golden Christos consciousness flowing down, instantaneously disengaging, transmuting, clearing away any dis-ease, discordance, discomfort, melting away the layers upon layers of victimizing programming, and resurrecting us into the highest framework of consciousness that we are capable of embodying in this now moment in accordance to our blueprint, in accordance to the highest divine law and order. Feeling it flowing down and through. Halia sundria naya 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 undrapia prosanda utayani unda praya prayani yahu hayanian sundraya prayani andanda oh oh papue andarie sandreya unda praya puyasani chandra undan puyatraya. Flowing down now, feeling it moving down and through all of our meridians, gateways, down and through our feet, this radiant flow of pure Christos light, of pure source light, flowing down and through. And we begin to feel ourselves now coming into a deeper embrace of our invitation to be here, to experience all the wonders, all the expansion, all the depths of duality and polarity of this earth experience, but in the flow of remembrance of who we are as source, in the flow of remembrance of the divine perfection that is to be experienced, to be known, to be felt in every now moment. And as we begin to further ground back into our physical bodies, we feel these roots moving down and through our feet chakras, these golden roots of our existence, assisting us in grounding and rooting deep down into the central crystal earth star and core of Mother Earth. Feeling the connection, feeling the grounding, feeling all of our bodies, physical, mental, emotional, and spirit bodies, coming into a greater field of harmony, balance, centeredness within. And as we do so, as we ground, as we embrace coming back into our physical bodies, coming into our heart centers, placing both hands upon our heart now, taking a deep, nourishing breath, and bringing forth the frequency and the invitation of gratitude. Gratitude to ourselves for showing up and connecting in this field of unified consciousness and pure source love. Gratitude to all the beings of pure source consciousness, Christos consciousness, that have gathered in this connection field of here and now. And gratitude for the splendor, the glory, the knowing, the invitation to return to this exact felt sense, to this light, to this knowing, to this felt sense and awareness of the eternal beings that we are in any moment moving forward that we choose. And so it is, and so it is, and so it is. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Coming back into our bodies, coming back into this now moment as we feel ready. Oh, I can't hear you, Sandra. I don't know if it's my audio.
Hey there.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Okay. I muted it because, when you go into those quiet spaces, sometimes I'll get that postnasal drip so I muted it so nobody could hear me clearing my voice and interrupting your beautiful channeling there. That was a wonderful blessing. And I would really suggest that on your second or third time listening to it, feel that embodiment of all of that. And then everywhere you go, something occurs and you need a reset. Just visualize Brooklyn's voice and then that feeling that you had when you listened to this. And you can snap into it. That was beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for allowing me to come forth in this creation together and spending time with you.
Well, I know we have free will, but allowing really isn't the thing because we're connected to a thread that says, you gotta do this. You gotta get to see these people. Gotta make the time. You gotta, get going with it. Everything takes action. So your website is seedsofconsciousness.com, and you've got a lot of courses on there, private sessions, and I think you just came up with something new that you just posted out. Would you like to tell the viewers a little bit about it?
Sure. Yeah. So it's actually seed, singular of consciousness.
Seed.
Just
Yes.
I know a lot of people put the S on there and can't find their way.
Yes.
But yeah, so there is a course, a new series of transmissions. It's 9 weeks, and it starts this coming Wednesday, July 6th. And it's going, deep into clearing out that which no longer serves us and bringing in more of our own unique expression of what I would say our original sort of angelic templates, right? So it's we could get really wordy with it, but really essentially what it is just another layer of expression of embodying more of our I am presence, ourselves. And through this series, I'm really excited about it because there will be a meditation that will also be provided after week 1's transmission. And whereas in previous series and courses, this has not been the case, we're meant to, or encouraged, of course we have free will, to participate in this meditation every day. So really assisting us in building that consistent practice, that non-negotiable practice of showing up for ourselves, but also to hold us in the frequency field of what comes through in these transmissions, and to allow for us to really embody it and ground it and become it during this course of 9 weeks together. So week 1 will be a 60-minute transmission, similar, different, but similar to what we just experienced in that meditation. And then every other week, so then week 2 is actually a community, 90-minute community live Q&A and sharing portal. And then we break out into small breakout groups, so people within the community get to know each other a little bit more intimately, and and really strengthening and growing that relationship with community. Because as we know, during this time, so many things are reorganizing and resetting, and there's a deep desire to find and to connect with our our deep soul connections, right? So I'm looking forward to it. It will be fun, and again, it's for 9 weeks, and if you go on my website, actually, you would not find it yet because it's being offered in a different way. So maybe what I can do, Sandra, is I can send you the link if you'd like, and we can provide it that way.
Yeah, I can definitely post it out, and I'll post out Seed of Consciousness with no extra S on there too. And then people can also go to your website and sign up for your email, to be on your email, so that they can see. That's how I saw it. And I was like, oh, she's got something new coming out. This is awesome. So if you want to keep informed, newsletters, emails, whatever you want to call them, are wonderful. So at least go to the website and sign up for that, and then go and explore everything that Brooklyn has to offer. Is there anything else that you'd like to share before we close today?
No, what I would say also, I guess what I would say is that there is a YouTube channel, Brooklin Rayne, and we're uploading. It's obviously technology. Yeah. We talked about that already. Yes. But I believe at this point in time, there's like maybe 30 or so free access to an abundance of free transmissions. So if you felt a sense of calm and a sense of homecoming and a greater sense of embodiment through the meditation that came in today, maybe you want to check into these different meditations and offerings that are on there, and there will be literally hundreds more of those coming as we're moving them from the archives of my website to that platform. So and I would just say, really deep honoring and compassion and love for you and for everyone joined in this connection space, and for all of us right now. Yes. And what we're going through, and I'm just grateful that we're going through it together.
Yeah, who knew your tribe would be all over the world? Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like we can't physically all travel, and the last couple of years has taught us that. But wow, the connections that have been made, as if we're traveling into each other's homes like this. And it's so amazing to be able to expand in that way without the limitations of plane, train, or automobile, or just a phone call, which is awesome. I would suggest that people go to the website and sign up for their email address, and then they can look at everything she has, including the new classes too. And I'll provide all those links in the description below. And then there may be a different link for the upcoming class, but if you get the email address, then you'll be able to get that, correct?
Perfect.
Okay. One less link to try to figure out how to send it my way, and then me figure out how to copy it and get it on there correctly. All right, everybody, have a wonderful day. Enjoy your 4th of July weekend. And Brooklyn, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Definitely going to do a round 2.
Yay.
So we'll see how that goes. And just blessings to each and every one of you today. Please like, subscribe, and share. Your support is important to us. Go to Brooklyn's YouTube channel, subscribe, like, and share her information as well. All right. So much love. Bye.